My dear friends, it's great to see you again. I'm Stephen Clements, a writer, a gamer, and an appreciator of big brain activities in general. On this channel, I perform dramatic story readings, provide role-playing game and movie reviews, and I get to talk to interesting people. And this episode, we're going to be reading part 3 of Memphis Dirty, Tales from the Dirty South short story, The Runner. If you're jumping in now, you might be able to enjoy the story without the context of the previous 2 episodes, but I do recommend you check them out first. And since The Runner is the second act of a 3-part overarching story that runs through the short story collection, you may also want to listen to my very first dramatic reading, The Tea House of Vile Revolution, though the 2 will converge in part 3, Bumpy Takes Over. So we left off part 2 with Maria leaping to her death rather than be violated by Duke Willie, the mayor of Memphis, who is apparently in league with whoever's trying to kill her. And so, part 3 of The Runner. God damn it, she wasn't dead. Unsure of how long she'd been out, she could tell that she was being carried, her arms on the shoulders of 2 men. They were wearing polo shirts and khakis. Fuck it, they got me. Game over, she resigned herself. One of the men took notice of her waking, whispering, "We're friends." "Where are you taking me?" she quietly croaked. "We're getting you away from that den of thieves. Care to join us for a drink?" It seemed odd that kidnappers would politely ask her to come along for a drink. Fuck it, whatever. Maria didn't bother raising her head to look where she was being taken. If she had, and craned her neck back far enough to take it all in, she would see a Gothic tower lording over the city in magnificent abandonment. The yellow, aged walls stood accented with gold, but only darkness could be found within its hundreds of windows. Once the tallest building in the South, a temple erected to capitalism, it stood hollow on its consecrated ground. Slipping through the boards put in place to keep hoodlums and hobos out, she heard a groan of metal and was carried into the darkness. A few steps in, however, the darkness was not the pitch blackness she thought it would be. From within the heart of the building came a pale, bone-white light. Breathing in the musty air, she looked around her, hearing only quiet and the clacking of the heels of her bearer's dress shoes. She beheld the lost grandeur of the Moorish hall and its limestone and granite bones. The deep color of the walls evoked to her the tomb of a long slumbering king, waiting for the stars to be right for his return. As they walked further in, she began to hear the thumping of bass, and the light grew brighter. Glancing over her shoulder, she saw the darkened trail that brought her here looked brighter than when she had first stepped foot on it. She whispered a question to her bearers, as though she would disturb something beyond the reach of light. "Where am I?" "You've been invited to Parliament. You can never let anyone know that," was all that would ever be said to her about that. Maria asked her escort, "Where are you taking me?" She was curtly answered, "To meet some friends." The trio stopped at a pair of black doors through which pierced the scintillating ray of white light that guided them here. One of her companions released her and stepped to one side of the door to gain them entrance in some manner arcane. The other held onto her arm even after she had steadied herself. She was his charge, and he would not risk her flight. The doors opened inward, revealing a swirling vortex of pulsing lights, thumping bass, and smoke. The hall was not ablaze with fire, not entirely anyway, for there were braziers suspended from on high holding dancing flames. But the fog meant to keep revelers cool in the depths of their orgiastic dancing. She saw before her a multi-tiered hall filled with dancers and revelers, glowing lights flashing through the crowd, and above it all a steady hand at the mixing board conducting the ebbs and flows of the epic rave consuming all those in its grasp. Even from the edge of the chaos, this event horizon that both robbed and created memories, Maria felt the bass rolling through her like an unstoppable spirit, the force of it shaking her to her very core. There's no telling how many hours the revelers, comprised of every shade and hue of the rainbow, had been swaying in the sea of bodies, passion, and energy. Her hosts moved swiftly to the heart of the chaos, pulling her through the gates just before they clacked shut. The heavy sound of their closing was the sound of a boom dropping, but even that roar went almost unnoticeable in the din of light and life. The bodies of those enraptured slid off her escorts like oil and water, but she found herself catching on those she passed by. The smell of bodies and heat and perfumes and lust was palpable in a way of which she was well familiar. The eyes, the fingers of those engulfing her and her boatmen touched her, grazed her, sought her. These were welcome eyes, eyes that wanted everything she was willing and wanting to give them, and nothing that she wanted to keep for herself. What had she kept for herself? She felt the firm hands of her guides on her, but she felt so many more. It became hard to tell whither she was to go, with whom, or where she was. In the heart of the chamber, she looked up to see a setting sun looking warmly down upon her from afar off, and she felt the full force of the thundering bass that wanted to change who she was. She didn't know if she would mind that kind of salvation. However, those hands that delivered her into this paradise brought her past the siren's rocks. She was finally wrenched from the grip of the hedonism into a golden elevator. The door shut, accompanied by a ding that sounded suspiciously like James Brown saying, "Get down!" There were no floor numbers that lit up as they ascended, but Maria knew they had to be moving fast enough to cover such ground. This was an elevator for those who knew the way to where they wanted to go, not those who needed to be told when to get off. The leering Olmec heads worked into the gold would not make the choice for you. One of the men in the pinstripe suits pressed a button set into the eye of a golden sun, bringing the elevator to an immediate smooth halt, accompanied by the elevator emitting a raspy black tone hollering, "Ah!" The door slid open to show a drab concrete hallway, strips of black light running the length of the walkway to another door. The trio walked purposely down the hall, but Maria's interest was piqued along the way. She saw tiny, isolated openings in the ceiling and recessed circles lining both high and low points along the walls. This wasn't just a hallway, this was a death trap. But not today. One of the men leaned over to a featureless side of the door frame and made entrance for the group, the other man pushing the way open. Maria was quickly brought into a slick VIP room, lit by neon lights decorating the ceiling and walls. There was already a party going on up here, with almost a dozen people in play. Her eyes were instantly drawn to the two men in command of the situation. With a woman on each arm and leg, a large older man decked out in a sleek cut suit smirked at his younger partner, a dark-headed man in the process of exhaling a plume of smoke as tall as a grizzly's forward. Maria had seen people hit a bong like that before, which meant this man was a professional. They laughed with good cheer afterwards before returning to the business at hand. The men that brought her to the room held her in place just inside the chamber, as it wasn't her turn for an audience yet. She could see that the man currently in the hot seat wasn't having a good time. "So I'll say again, do you know what you're here for?" asked the dark-haired younger man. He was slightly tan with slick-backed hair, with a sparkle in his keen eyes matched against his shockingly white suit. When he started rocking side to side in his high-backed executive chair, Maria noticed the nickel-plated revolver in his right hand. He was lazily swaying it around to add the right tone to the interview. One of Maria's escorts quietly grumbled in her ear, "You're going to answer some questions when it's your turn. The one with the gun you will call Princess. The one with the women you will call Spectre. Make no sudden moves." Maria couldn't help but whisper without looking back, "Why is he called Princess?" "It's a cover name. Don't ask," was all her handler advised. Kneeling on the polished hardwood floor before Princess was a bruised young man with dirty blonde hair, his hands zip-tied behind his back. His thin, fair beard was streaked with blood. "Am I getting lectured by a drug kingpin for breaking the law?" he asked incredulously. Princess jumped up, fury rising in his baritone voice. "Yes, Douglas, you are! You listen to me, you little punk. There is a difference between what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. Asshole, I made you a fat stack, so you better cut this bullshit before I..." Whack! The blonde hipster lay on the ground, brought low by a backhand by the man in white. Princess pointed his index finger in judgment at the blonde man on the floor, saying, "Listen, you little shit, we don't sell to kids. We don't trade goods to kids for sex. We don't give the goods to kids to watch them have sex." "Dude, they were 17, and they were hot as hell, you faggot!" the blonde youth proclaimed in exasperation, trying to defend his licentiousness. Whoom! The blonde man gasped in pain as the air in his chest was kicked out of him. A few swings of his black dress shoes later, Princess composed himself. Smoothing back his unruffled hair, he continued his tirade. "See, Douglas, that's what makes us different. We sell to people who can handle their shit. We sell to grown-ups. We sell to people who don't freak out when their idiot friend who can't handle their shit ODs and call the cops. They were 17 this time, but what about next time?" he asked rhetorically. Motioning to the two men standing stoically behind Douglas, Princess quietly ordered, "Get him out of here." As the two bent over to pick up the convicted, the black man of the pair asked, "Where you want him?" Thinking it over for a moment, Princess finally decided, fuck him. Send him to Guatemala. He turned away as the two men took the garbage out, walking to a gleaming sink against the back wall. He poured some water out to wash the filth off his hands and splashed it on his face to freshen his senses. Spectre looked up from the women on his arms and noticed Maria, as if she had just appeared. The older man in sleek black silk said matter-of-factly to his partner, "We've got company." Princess finished toweling the water from his brow before he looked over his shoulder to see Maria. Throwing the towel down, he yelled at the rest of the women, "Get out, you hussies! Men got business!" The bevy of buxom beauties knew better than to protest and just left, blowing kisses at the relaxed Spectre as they went out the door. Maria's escort stepped out with them. The older man stood to speak, cordially asking Maria, "May we get you anything? An aperitif? A distraction?" he suggested, his hand sweeping toward a tray of pills and pre-cut lines of white. "I'm fine," is all she said, unsure if she would ever eat of those fruits again. Princess nodded along as Spectre went through the formalities, but once concluded, he yelled at Maria in a full-throated blast, "What the fuck are you so wanted for?" "I don't know," she said, the weariness evident in her voice. "What were you doing with the mayor then?" "He was going to fuck me." No surprise in her tone, no sense of threat. "If Duke Willie wanted to fuck you, he'd have put you in prison and softened you up first, so you'd be nice and pliable when he got you out. He never has anybody brought straight to him." "Why did your men pick me up?" The younger man pinched the bridge of his nose. "Focus on your breathing. Don't be so tense," he thought to himself. In a calm tone, he replied, "Because Willie wanted you so bad. We had to find out why. That's why." He paced around the room. "And you were helpful enough to jump out a window. So our guys who caught wind of you at the police station were in just the right place to snatch you off the pavement and get you out of there. Now, why did he want you so bad?" She honestly didn't know what to tell him. The only clues she had were from Duke Willie's gloating, so that's where she started the tale. She recounted everything, from the moment she stalked toward her prey, Jatarius, to the party at John's mansion built on sin. She cleared him out of all the ice in the room and slipped out. Then the death. All the death. She finished her story, standing where Douglas had just been brought to judgment. Spectre and Princess sat back in their executive chairs, taking it all in, thinking through the angles. Attention to detail is what got them where they were, and it was what kept them ahead of their enemies, and alive. Spectre's mustachioed lips framed the question, "Is that all?" "Yes, that's all I know," her voice starting to choke. She didn't know why all this happened, and she felt like she kept coming up short and trying to figure it out. Princess pressed the point. "So you're telling us that you ripped off a hood rat that sold some weed to a porn kingpin, and not only did they have the resources, intel, and drive to find and try to kill you, they followed you to a place they couldn't have known you'd go and tried it again, only to then follow you to Phoenix and kill your family for it. And over 1,000 miles away, Duke Willie knew what you did, which you don't even know, and he's in with them to the point of capturing and handing you over for whatever they're going to do to you. For stealing some jewelry. From a hood rat." "I ain't buying it." "Who else did you screw over?" asked Spectre. "This is it! This is all I got!" she shrieked, upending the contents of her purse onto the nearest table. The bling cascaded out, dazzling in the neon lights like a purple rain. Maria had to shake the purse several times to dislodge the most stubborn pieces of loot. For good measure, she took off the pieces she was wearing and threw it onto the pile. "Wow, I'd be pissed too," said Princess, in shock at the mound of high-priced jewelry she just dumped out of her Gucci knockoff. Eyeballing the pile of lucre, Spectre reached over to it, running his fingers through the goods. His hand stopped suddenly. His fingers grasped, and he pulled a thumb drive out of the pile of wadded Benjamins and chains. Princess's eyebrows rose in interest, and he smacked his lips. "Well, let's see what we have here," he said, snatching the thumb drive from the older man's outstretched palm. He stalked across the room to a laptop sitting open atop the rich mahogany desk at the back of the room and plugged it in. A few moments of silent clicking later, he laughed out loud, stomping his heels in amazement. "Spectre, I know why she's such a wanted piece of ass. There's an entire network of narco-terrorists, Al-Qaeda bullshit here. This is enough shit to indict some of the biggest businessmen and politicians in the country, in the world. Now that makes sense. Who the hell leaves this in a nightstand?" he finished, puzzled. Maria was speechless. She had no clue that's what she had. Her shock turned to panic. When the initial surprise cooled down, she remembered that her hosts were drug pushers themselves. Maybe there was dirt on them they'd rather keep quiet on that thumb drive. She asked plainly and without fear, "What are you going to do with me?" Spectre looked her over with the kind of calculation in his eyes she expected to see in John's eyes. In an even tone of voice, he told her, "Go with the men that brought you here. They have a room you can stay in." "I don't want to go." "Maria, you're safe here. You are among friends. You have nothing to fear from us," he continued, as he stood up to step closer to her. "See, we're the chivalrous types." Princess chimed in with agreement. "Chivalry ain't dead," as he continued flipping through the files. "And besides, we invited you in. We'd at least wait for you to leave before we'd kill you." The older man finished. "Unless you try to cross us, we've got no beef with you. You need some rest." Maria nodded silently and turned around, walking measured steps toward the door. She went with the two armed men waiting outside, fully aware that she was trapped here. As Princess's display of indulged violence on one of his own people demonstrated, they would do with her what they wanted. The VIP room was cleared out, and the two friends found themselves alone in the room, quiet except for the dull thumping of the bass below. The air grew very close in light of the smoke and the revelation. Such a small place was not fit to discuss big ideas. "Let's get some fresh air," said Spectre. Princess grabbed the thumb drive and shoved it in his pocket. The two exited the room, down the strafing chamber and into the elevator to down below the city. Spectre knew where to stop, and the two stepped into an underground tunnel. It looked as though it might have once been a subway terminal, now long forgotten. Indeed, these two men were the only people still alive that even knew it was here. The two men walked in silence to where the tunnel ended at a railed, open-aired platform overlooking the Mississippi River. Spectre leaned on both hands, staring out over the waters rippling in the night's light. "This is big news. Real big news," started Spectre. Princess nodded. "Just from first glance, there's enough in there for us to find all the connections between some of the dirtiest players in the game, all over the world and right here at home. We're going to know where all the joints are to break to destroy some heinous people." "Is Duke Willie in there?" Spectre asked, not looking away from the waters. "His was the first name I searched for." "What do we got on him?" "Names of suppliers, money launderers, insurers, dealers, allies. Dirty's got on people to keep them pliable. The works." "Anybody we could take?" "Of course we could take them. We're badasses," replied Princess, mildly insulted over the insinuation. "I'm serious, my friend. We've got our stuff together, but the fact is Duke Willie is the top dog for 4 states. We can hold our own, and have, but can we take down the king? Can we keep the other groups in town from launching a war with us if we made a play for supremacy?" "I think so," said the younger man. "I saw parts we could carve up to make it worth their while. And there's Willie's people we can take out or flip to our side. We won't have to skulk like lesser men beneath the colossus in our hometown anymore." Money and power were great, but that wasn't what was on Spectre's mind every day. The picture on his nightstand he gazed at lovingly every night didn't have a dollar bill in it. It held the only woman that he had ever really loved, all that he had left of her, his Dorothy, his precious Dorothy that Duke Willie let die. It was never enough for Duke Willie to conquer. He had to desolate and burn until all under his power had nothing left to fight for. None of this would bring her back. Princess carried on, oblivious to the inner pain of his old friend. "We can't stop with Willie. There's more we can take down and set to right. There's enough dirt here to bring down some of the biggest pricks and evil masterminds alive and breathing. Crooks on Wall Street, senators, police chiefs, cartels, dictators, terrorists. All these bastards making billions off white slavery, terrorism, and blood dope, like Blood Diamond's just snortable. Ed can go down with all this. We can take down this wall, one brick at a time. We can make this world, this city, a better place." As his younger compatriot dreamed big, Spectre was not so sure that all that was even possible. "Okay, we may be able to take down Duke Willie, but that won't be easy, and who knows if we'll live through that. For the sake of Memphis, yes, we'll take the gamble. But all the rest? Buddy, we're only 2 chumps on a stump and a city on a bluff. How are we ever going to take down all those other guys?" Would it even make a difference if we did? We can't take all their spots, and who will replace them when they're gone? Princess listened to the old man and gestured for Spectre to continue. Spectre sighed, continuing. My friend, we're not clean ourselves. What makes you think we'd wind up doing any different? Will the blood and the suffering be worth it? We've got our faith, and we're already different. We don't aim to hurt the lives we touch, was the answer. Spectre still felt a pain in his heart. He wanted to wreck Duke Willie, make him bleed, and hear him scream for what he had done. The sweet woman he let die, the lives he had ruined, all because Spectre tried to stand up to the man who promised to bring even more racism and violence to this troubled city. The women Spectre surrounded himself with helped him forget about her sometimes, but they never healed the wound. What if his friend went down in a hail of gunfire in this war he wanted to start? Who would help keep Spectre from going to that dark place and bring its fury back with him? Tears began to form in the hefty man's eyes. Why are we even doing this? I mean, think about what we already have. There's so much evil in the world. How arrogant are we to think we'll make a hill of beans difference? Why are we even here? After everything we've done, why keep going? Was his final exclamation as the tears rolled down. Princess put his arm around the shoulders of his troubled friend. He let him weep, but not forever. Princess finally said, it's got to be worth it. What else can we do? We're still alive. Would you prefer to sit here and wait for relentless time to run down the clock? You're right, we're not clean, but we've already done so much good with the little empire we've built. The other good guys want to fix the problem from the outside, which will never work so long as this stuff is illegal. So we get dirty to take back the night. That's what makes us different. We've been given this knowledge and the ability to do something about it. We would be cowards and lesser men than we are to do nothing. The two men stood at the edge of the platform, overlooking the great river rolling forever on, as it always has, tonight under darkened sky. In her quiet room, Maria was all alone with her thoughts. Only the double tequila sunrise kept her company. She was really beyond caring at this point. She just wanted it to end. She didn't feel anything, just a dull sense of regret. And tired. So tired. She sat, staring down, when she heard a knock at her door. She opened it to see a composed, resolute Spectre standing there. Maria opened the door without a word, stepping aside for him to enter. As the door clicked shut after him, he told her, what you brought us is an amazing gift that will topple tyrants. What do you want for it? I want my life back. I can't give you that. I want to go home. Your home is gone. I want to see my family. Someday you will, just not in this lifetime. I want to live. He stepped up to her, locking her eyes to his. If you want to live, here's what's going to happen. You're going to talk to a nice man named Feng, who will make you a different person. I'm going to touch you up a bit, make their pictures of you not look like you. You're going on a mission trip to a place with a name you'll find out when you get there. They'll never find you again. We'll make them pay. All of them. She understood. He walked closer to her, a kind strength in his eyes. He touched her chin, lifting it so that she may drink in the comfort he brought her. I cannot bring back the dead, but I can avenge them. I cannot set the world to how it was before the Reaper came. I cannot put the petals back on the rose now that we're fallen. But we can live this life with all that's left to us. We can't undo the damage, but maybe we can grow past the scars. And thus concludes The Runner. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Yeah, there was a couple things about that story that I want to point out might be of interest to you. One, the building that the couple of saviors took Maria to, as described in the story, that clearly maps to the Steric building in downtown Memphis. Now, I've had a soft spot for this building for years. Unfortunately, I've never been inside of it because it's been closed and basically condemned for as long as I've been alive. There's all kinds of real estate lawsuits and disputes and legal claims that keep that big, beautiful thing closed down and not being used for any particular purpose, which is a crying shame. It's gorgeous, but I wanted an impressive location to set the scenes in this part of the story, so I went to the Steric building. I love it. I'm going to write about it. And Duke Willie, that is a slightly fictionalized version of Willie Harrington, mayor of Memphis for about 20 years, and he drove that place into the ground. Now, there's plenty of other factors that contributed to the decline in Memphis because it used to be a pretty decent place, but that asshole, wherever he's at, if he's not dead, I hope that he is, because he materially made the world a worse place. Thus, why he's a villain in my stories. And you're going to see him again in Bumpy Takes Over, because I'm petty and like to torture those who I can't harm in person in fiction. So hopefully you've enjoyed this, and if you would like a copy of this story along with the other short stories that we've gone over in audio version from Memphis Dirty, Tales from the Dirty South, just check out Amazon. I got a link in the description below. And if you enjoyed listening to me read it, why don't you send links of this to your friends? Maybe they'll enjoy it as well. As always, if you got any thoughts or feedback, drop that in the comments below. I read them all and I appreciate them all. So that's what I got for you now, my dear, dear friends. Until next time, I wish you nothing but the best.